On the intervening night of December 2nd and 3rd in 1984, deadly gas drifted through the densely populated neighborhoods of Bhopal. Thousands of people died immediately. Thousands more tried to flee, unsure of really what was happening around them or to them, but only knowing that they had to get out of their homes as soon as possible. The death toll ran to thousands. Somewhere we're told between 15,000 to 20,000. Now, you may wonder why there's no exact number. We'll never know, even to this date, exactly how many perished in that gas tragedy. And that's why this is one of the worst tragedies the world, not just India, but the world has seen. But while we've all heard the horror stories, the tragedy that played out in Bhopal, the stories of heroes who saved thousands of lives while risking their own has never really been spoken of. The Railway Men aims to change that, shining the light on just some of the everyday heroes who did everything they could to help the people of Bhopal. Joining me in our studios today is the team behind this Netflix series. Actors are Madhavan, KK Menon, Babil Khan, and director Shiv Ravel. Thank you all very much for joining us here on India Today, and congratulations on what looks to be a great, great series that really speaks about something that remains an untold story. We've unfortunately never had enough films or series about this. So Madhavan, if I can start with you.
Sure.
To work in a project like this, you know people's lives have been so adversely affected. You have to bring that pain and suffering alive again. What was it like, and what kind of preps do you do in such a circumstance?
Stories like this, especially the ones that have happened in India, from the ashes of such tragedies, heroes are seen to rise. And even though everybody likes to play out the story of this tragedy, which is very unfortunate, but it's also very important to acknowledge the heroes that have come out, and also, from the very same set of people who could have been responsible for the tragedy, right? So for me, when I heard about this story, I was not too excited, because I was not keen to show a tragic story on screen again and relive that moment for me, because I remember when I heard about it and I saw the visuals and pictures of it, it made me squirm, and I have seen the repercussions of the gas tragedy and what has happened to many years after that tragedy as well. But when I met Shiv and I heard the story, I realized it was not about the tragedy. It is about these incredible men in the railways who put everything online to make sure that they turn into heroes. You don't have to be a hero. You can't be a hero every day of your life and walk around with a cape, right? But when the time rises, the decisions that you make, the kind of choices you make, and not just by the leader of a group, for instance, but every individual who decides to risk his life to go there and be of service to the people affected and to the nation, that for me was highly inspiring, and my entire attitude and approach towards the series changed completely when I heard what the story was all about. And nobody has told the story from the perspective of the railway men, the railway.
Yeah, I didn't know about this.
Exactly, which is why I thought that was fascinating. My entire, I had goosebumps when I heard the story, and I knew that I had to be part of it. That was the first reason. The second was I was working with an ensemble of some fantastic actors that I've had great admiration for, and KK and Babil, and I worked with Babil's father, and it was something that I was really looking forward to. And then of course Shiv, it's a great indication of why a story is being told, or why the series is being made, when somebody who's a debut director decides not to do the cliched commercial film that he could have easily done at Yash Raj, but chooses a subject like this, which is as far removed from him as possible. Probably not even born, or in his senses when this tragedy happened.
Were you born?
You weren't born, right?
No.
You were not born. So that's just driving up the point. So when a filmmaker and a storyteller decides to pick on a subject and invest everything that he's ever done as this and make this your first project, it tells you a lot about why the series is being made. It was very compelling reasons.
Shiv, you weren't born. So why did you choose the Bhopal gas tragedy? Why did you choose this subject? How did you come across the story of these railway officials who didn't think about their own lives but saved so many at that railway station?
So it was so fascinating. There's this writer, Sridhar Raghavan. He writes a lot of Hindi films, etc. And me and him were working on a script together, and for Yash Raj Films. And he introduced me to Ayush Gupta, who's the writer of Railwaymen. So Ayush and I met over a coffee, and I had some ideas which I was talking about, and I asked him that, do you have something? And he gave me this one-page story about this incident, about what happened at Bhopal, what conspired at Bhopal Junction on the night of the gas leak. And my mind was blown. I was like, this is the most fantastic and the most the best way to portray a story like this. Like I'd never read this lens or seen anyone, tell this story in this lens. Right. So I found that so attractive, and immediately I remembered like taking it to Aditya Chopra and telling him at Yashad Films and telling him that, I think I've got something, and it's human, it's real, it's going to tell it's based on all these great true stories, but it has such a strong emotional core. And at the same time, you're going to be able to tell a story that is based in reality. So I think when all of this came together, it just worked out so beautifully. And I don't think I could have chosen a better story for like what is going to be my directorial debut. I think it was just so fantastic. Like this came together, and at times I used to think that it's so mature, like am I going to handle it? But I think the hard work the entire team put in, and then getting these fantastic actors to work with me on this was just amazing. And I think that's how it.
Can I just say that everyone who's seen the series so far says one thing. They say, I can't believe this is work of a debut director. There seems like a seasoned veteran director who's worked. And I mentioned something also, Shiv, about how there haven't been enough films perhaps and series, documentaries yes, but films and series about the Bhopal gas tragedy. And KK, before I come across to you, let me just show our viewers some of the images. These are images that India Today magazine, which is one of the first to reach that site, clicked. That picture, of course, has become synonymous with the gas tragedy, but there are so many more that show you and give you just a glimpse of the tragedy that played out. And let me again reiterate, the death toll was somewhere between 15,000 to 20,000, maybe more. There's a sense even today that justice hasn't been served in the Bhopal gas tragedy. KK, if I could ask you, do you remember your first memory of hearing the news of the Bhopal gas tragedy?
Yes, I do. I was born then. Yes. See, I think one of those tragedies which hasn't been really spoken about in the world. I think it's a Holocaust of a different kind. I think the kind of coverage it got was far less compared to the kind of deaths and painful situations in which generations after that are leading their lives. For me, railway men per se is the highlight. We forget the fact that railways as an organization in India is the largest in the world. The number of people it employs are huge. The network is mind-boggling. You really can't think about the crisscross of network that we have. Now, in this story, Bhopal gas tragedy, fortunately for me, I have done one film earlier called Bhopal Express, earlier in '98. So I knew about the tragedy. I knew that visual when it came to me. I could that was there in that film. So that was about the tragedy. Now here we have focused ourselves on the railway men, the railway as an organization. It's about the grit and determination of saving lives in a very high-risk job. Railways, unfortunately, people don't realize. They think that
they think it's a safe and secure job.
Yeah, no. In terms of taking off on a plane, yes, you feel it's a high-risk job. People can die. But here also people can die. So it's a very high-tech and sleepless kind of work that they do, in managing the trains so that none of them collide with each other, reach on time, etc., etc. It's a mind-boggling network. Correct. So people don't realize the high-risk nature of that job. And within that organization, there is a sense of, at least that's what we have portrayed in the film, that these people of the organization called the railways know that it's their job to save lives on that day. They have just one focus. Come what may, we need to save as much as we can. And that is, I think, the highlight of, as far as the series goes. The grit, determination, the compassion that they have, irrespective of what is happening to them. Because those people are now in their domain. Those people are looking up to them for saving themselves. And what is their contribution in it is, I think, the highlight of the series.
Yeah, I think so many people are going to be learning about these stories, which we've never unfortunately spoken of. We call them unspoken heroes, and I think literally in that sense, in this case, that's what it was. We don't know any of their names, and yet after the series, I've had the chance of reading so many of these stories, so many of these testimonies, that you feel heartbroken that you didn't know about them and perhaps didn't give them their due as well. Babil, for you, I'm sure this is extremely exciting to be working with this kind of a team, with this kind of a cast, with such a great story as well. I'm sure you weren't born when the gas tragedy happened. Did you know about this? Because my concern is Gen Z doesn't know much about this.
No, I don't think so. And I had very, very little awareness when Shiv, introduced me to the concept and to the film. For me, it was not, because I was not aware of it and I had very little awareness, the story, it was not about the Bhopal gas tragedy for me. It was about the human element and the human emotion. See, when we imagine a hero, we imagine him as this, big, grand, cape guy who saves many people and has superpowers. But what we don't realize is that the everyday man can be a hero. And that fact, that it reaches out to people when they see the series, they feel within themselves a hero, They see within themselves a hero through this series, that there is heroism in everyone, and when the time calls, the choice you make, as Madhavan sir said, can make you a hero. And that is what pulled me to the story more than the gas tragedy. And then through the story, I started researching about the tragedy and I got more aware. And I thought that the fact that my generation is so little, it's not aware about this at all compared to the other tragedies in the world is a shame. And this should be a reignition of memory, but also, should awaken the hero inside them.
You've had a very interesting choice of films. I remember meeting you before the release of Kala. Till now, I really feel that you've evolved. And I was seeing the pictures, the trailers of this particular series, and your look in the series is so much like your father's, Babil. It stood out for me in that sense. And I truly believe...
In which Baba's done so much work.
I feel that you look like him in this more than in any other film that you've done before. In that sense.
Yeah, so I think it's the makeup as well.
Maybe, yeah. I think it's the hairstyling and all of that together that made that work together. Yeah. But, the humanness of this series is what perhaps everyone will connect to, Madhavan. I'm sure you understand also the sensitivity involved with this kind of a subject. Because even today, generations on, decades on, there's a fight that many of these victim survivors continue to have. Many of them perhaps will be looking at this series to kind of see, have they really told our story well?
Exactly.
And I'm sure you recognize that also going into the series and ahead of its release.
That's a very well put question. The reason I want to do, I'm saying that is because I want to put into perspective for today's audience what that gas tragedy actually was. If you look at 9/11, about 5,000 to 6,000 people died at one time. The amount of conversation currency that generated, with films being made on the bravado of the firefighters and everything, which is, of course, hats off to them, and they've done a great job with it, okay? Sure. But the amount of media interest and the fact that the world is coming and the whole world order has changed because of something like a 9/11, or even if you look at the recent unrest around the world, the death toll isn't 10,000, maybe 11,000. Here we're talking about 20,000 people who died one night.
More. We don't know.
I'm saying official figures of, and I'm very sure it's not the correct numbers. Exactly. It cannot be less than that. But 20,000 people disappeared from Bhopal in one night. And generations after that have been bearing the repercussions of such a man-made tragedy. And there is hardly any fiction or news about it. Chernobyl happens and you make such a big series on it and everybody talks about it. This is the worst industrial disaster that the world has ever seen. And we in India barely tell a story. We make the story more about tragedy. So for me, to see the heroes being celebrated in one way or the other because of Railwayman, and also to bring to the world the kind of the grit that this nation has to move on and still become what we become today is for me a phenomenal story, right? And it tells you, if you take a look at Railwayman and you see the people involved over there, and you see Babil's character, for instance, Menon's character, how these normal almost plain Johns, I would say, suddenly become Superman over a period of time in one night. And that's what we are, I think, as Indians.
They don't think
brilliant.
twice.
No, there is no hesitation. The whole idea that my life, what is that? It's got no connection, or whether my life is in danger or not. We need to say. See, we've seen that in Bombay, in the 2611 and all that. You could have 10,000 differences with each other, which either this community or beliefs or faiths or whatever. But a tragedy strikes Bombay and everybody comes together. Okay, and it just come together with a, with almost like a passion, with a resolve, and it's strong. It's a movement. Nobody sees color, creed, religion, and all at that point in time. Same thing happened during the Bhopal tragedy. Only thing is we didn't have Instagrams and phones and social media to talk about it and create this hue and cry, which I think we deserve to have and bring attention to such a tragedy. I'm very glad we're doing it now.
Did you, KK, did you feel a sense of anger? Because I most certainly did when I read the story, and I felt a sense of anger and betrayal because I didn't know about these stories. So when you read the script, did you also feel that we should have done better, we should have done more justice to these heroes, we should have spoken of them?
That's always the case, isn't it? If certain things are neglected, obviously you get those pangs of anger. But we didn't let it affect the filmmaking per se. Individually, yes, of course. I think, as Maddie rightly said, it's one of those biggest tragedies that have just never been talked about. Again, the focus in this series is more about the heroes that came thereof. And I was astounded by the script in terms of the fact that given a situation, suddenly you have no cowards there. You only have heroes. Everybody is, and the pride of being in an organization called Railway, and taking the responsibility that these people have to be saved, and we are the saviors, and come what may. That truly is a heroic story.
Correct.
It's not a hinterland story. But it's truly a heroic story according to me, and it's like rising. You can see that happening, and most heroes are post facto.
Correct.
You're not hero in the beginning, and that's how heroes should be ideally.
Celebrated maybe a bit too late, though.
Bit too late, yeah, of course. I think we have tried our best to celebrate them, but I just hope the nation also takes it up and realizes that this is what had happened eons ago. And this is how it was never talked about, and it needs some attention, according to me. And even if now they don't pay attention, yes, of course, I'll be angry.
So that something like this never happens again. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's the whole objective.
I agree.
And we got in. Sorry, I'm interrupting, but we got such amazing insights into what that night would have been for the people there. They actually, for them, because they were with the public. Now, I want to bring to your attention, we've just got out of the pandemic, right, where we're wearing masks, and the fear of going in a group was always there, ki pata nahi humko COVID ho jayega ki nahi. But that night, the air was poisonous. Can you imagine? It doesn't matter where you go.
You can't escape.
You can't escape. It's not like आप घर में बैठ गए तो कोविड का बाहर से कोई नहीं आया तो आप बच जाओगे. आप घर में बैठो, बाथरूम में बैठो, जहाँ बैठो, छत पे बैठो, पूरे माहौल में this poison is spreading. So the question is, किसका टाइम आ गया और किसका टाइम नहीं आया? And that under those circumstances you have to make a decision of not running away or actually running towards the disaster. Very beautifully written by him, and that was amazing what they have done.
Yeah. Madhavan, finally to you, the emotion that you believe a viewer will go through watching this series, like KK said, it's going to hit the heart perhaps more than the mind.
Yeah, and one thing I'd like the people to take away from it is that, see, we're a nation that's progressing brilliantly and very quickly right now in terms of every aspect of it, right? So, but the problem is, an organization is only as strong as its weakest link. So if you look at a guy who's 50 years old, who's in the hills, he stays in a small shack, and he has to get up at 3 o'clock every morning to come quickly, make sure that the railway gate is closed so that the Rajdhani Express can pass and show the signal. Now, the lives of all those people traveling by that train depends on this guy being awake and doing his job, and he's doing it, One of the things I think we as a nation have to, look into very carefully is that even though it looks like we do a small mundane job, the importance of that job is so much that you slacking down on it could result in a huge disaster or a tragedy, which is what happened at Bhopal. Everybody was doing their job half-heartedly. कि ठीक है अपना उतना का जरूरी काम नहीं है यार, इतनी तो मेरे को यही तो बंद करना है, यही तो खोलना है, यही तो है. There is an importance that is attached to that job, and for you either doing it or not doing it properly in all the Western countries in a great way. They're made to understand कि भाई सच इतने लोगों की जिंदगी तेरे हाथ में है. I wish that everybody who sees this series realize the amount of power and the amount of importance they hold in the smallest job they do in any of these delicate structures.
Don't take anything for granted, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, have a presence of mind to make sure you're actually applying yourself to the job, because it could end in a disaster that, you know, innocent people will end up paying for.
So very true. On that note, thank you very much to all of you for joining us here in our studios. All the very best to you. This is a story that needs to be told. I'm glad it's out there now. The Railway Men will be on Netflix come November 18. The trailer, of course, is already opened to rave reviews. It's a story that all of us perhaps need to hear. We've heard of the Bhopal gas tragedy, but how many of us really know about the heroes who saved thousands of lives at a time when 20,000 died in this gas tragedy in 1984?